Earlier this year, I began the 88th Armory with the idea of adding some variety to my, and maybe some viewers' arsenals by looking at weapon and Warframe builds that can work for the mid-game, where we play a lot of Warframe's experience and see what might make it into or close to the endgame. What I found in doing this was that I want to put everything on the table. Warframe is a game most often played in the mid-tier of its difficulty. This means facing enemies that are somewhere from 25 to 45 in level, give or take 5 levels. But what I found in attempting to point out in some of these weapons and builds that I enjoy in my mid-game play was that there are tons more to be had than even I thought. What we're looking for here is more variety, more fun in our Warframe experience. I still want to focus on more weapons, builds, and combinations for the mid-tier of the game where we often have a lot of our play, but I want to put all options on the table to find these elements of enjoyment through diversity, which is a lot of what Warframe has to offer. I'm Scott from Ramble Entertainment, and this is the new version of Season 1 of the 88th Armory. Let's find our fun, let's find our variety. So today, the weapon I want to look at is the Pyrana, and just a very, very quick thing before we even get started. Wearing a hat, hair's a wreck, in a lot of pain because I went and worked out last night, and I wasn't supposed to do that apparently, while my left leg continues to be treated, and so yeah, whoops. But we're here to look at the Pyrana, so let's actually take a look at that. And this is actually a phenomenal little sidearm that, man, shooting him in the face was awesome. This is a phenomenal little sidearm that I think is very easily ignored because of it kind of walks. It's one of these weapons that walks a bit of a complex line. I might die here because I was just trying to focus on using the Piranha the whole time. We'll see. If I die, I die. Anyway, I died. So it's this complex weapon that walks this this really fine line to find its damage, to find its balance, and I had actually purchased this weapon back when I had first started out. Like, I was just like, oh, I want to buy platinum. I'm in. You got me, DE. And, yeah, so I had decided on buying this weapon when I had budgeted out all that platinum. I was like, okay, this much will go into Forma for the dojo, and I'll actually give this much to my friends, and my 2 friends who, started playing this game with me, and then I'll spend this on weapons and this on Warframes, and I hadn't picked it up ever since then because I just didn't have the mods at that point, of course. But now that I actually have all the mods in place for it, and it's not that you really can't swap some of these in and out or really 100% need their primes, but yeah, when you have the mods for it, when you're at these top tier mods, this weapon is phenomenal, and I honestly can't wait for its prime variation because it is a 10-0 weapon, and I think that it's going to likely have a pretty phenomenal prime variation where basically it will probably have improved reload speed or improved ammo, and likely along with that better crit, and yeah, just a lot of fun. So let's go ahead and take a look at its builds. For me, what the Pyrana really boils down to is one build, where you have barrel diffusion. I do not add lethal torrent because I think the Pyrana fires fast enough, and really I think you gain more benefit from adding damage as opposed to just kind of adding some more multi-shot, and I think you get more damage personally, in my mind, out of Hollow Point, and then of course you focus on what you're going to want to DPS down. He had Charge and Convulsion for radiation, and then Pathogen rounds to make up for, say, other Grineer type units, or maybe even other Corrupted type units that you aren't applying extra damage to. And really, I think the irreplaceable mods, of course, are your Barrel Diffusion, and then your Primed Target Cracker and your Primed Pistol Gambit to capitalize on the weapon's critical. And then, of course, Hornet Strike, because duh. And then you do have this opportunity, I would say, to go with Creeping Bullseye instead of Hollow Point, but that's all I really got is you know, it's I think those two mods are really a personal choice. You're either going to see more yellow numbers or you're going to see larger yellow numbers. It's either way. I haven't really use your words. I really haven't measured the damage for between the different two mods, and I don't intend to, because I personally feel like between the two of them, either is fine. This isn't a weapon that I would really take into Tier 3 sortie or a Mission 3 sortie. I wouldn't take it into a raid, because I don't think it really hits that high as far as the DPS goes. It's not meant for that. It's meant for, again, this sort of mid-game play, these mid-game builds that we go for. And so, again, really you can swap between Hollow Point and Creeping Bullseye, but personally I use Hollow Point, and I think that this would likely be the mod that we replace when we get Riven mods for our secondaries. But we'll dream about that in the latter half of this video. So this build is about the Piranha. This video is about the Piranha, but I will talk about Volt here. So let's go ahead and flip to his build that I use to complement the weapon. So typically with the Piranha, or with a weapon here in the 88th, I would focus on just the weapon itself, but as I said with my Sobek video, which was the second 88th Armory for this season, you're never really going in and just focusing on a weapon. You never really go into a mission and just use this one weapon, and you don't use powers, you don't use other weapons. But I did want to emphasize the things that can add to the Piranha to make it even stronger. If I was using Volt, typically I wouldn't use this focus on shield build where I focus on basically duration, and that's it. And if I had, I would add another polarity here to use a bigger narrow-minded so that I could make the shields last longer. But still, you're not really going to just be focusing on one weapon, and Volt has a lot more utility than just the shields that add 200% crit damage multiplier, and yet obviously there is an opportunity there. The Pyrana is a nice sidearm to combine with these Volt shields, and that is what I wanted to emphasize more, as well as combining with an Adarza Kavat, as I do with my Greg Prime. But either way, I really wanted to show the weapon's utility with and without shields, and with and without the Adarza's modifier active. And then in the final footage, what I want to look at is, of course, all of that combined to really amp up the weapon and make it a great sidearm. Now, I also want to say that this is an expensive weapon. Sometimes we look at 2 formal weapons. In fact, I'll probably bring one of those out next week. But then, of course, sometimes we look at 6 formal weapon. I'm not always, like, apt to be like, 6 forma, yeah! Typically, my happy medium is about 4 forma, and then 5 forma is like, okay, I'll either get to that 5th one later, or I'll just go ahead and do it, and we'll speed level it. But yeah, 6 forma for this bad boy, but at the same time, this is one of the few where I've put 6 forma into and I've been like, that was worth it. And again, it really makes me excited for what the Prime variant could potentially look like if there is one. Technically there's no secondary, well actually yeah, there is the Bronco Prime shotguns, but heck, it's time for another one maybe. We'll see if or when. And again, yeah, I think it would be phenomenal to see a Prime variant of the weapon with like more status, because I think there is room for what could potentially be a status build. So like even if we have to get a Riven mod for it to achieve some kind of status, or more crit, and definitely somewhere between more ammo or more reload speed. But this isn't really about what a Prime could look like, it's about what we have now. But I am excited for it, and I'm excited because what we have now is a pretty heavy-hitting secondary crit shotgun, and I was actually talking with my friend about this kind of balance of shotguns and how it's not just about really about how the shotgun functions, but even the aesthetic of the shotgun, the multi-shot, the beauty of really just seeing this explosion of numbers and being able to see that with more yellow in a secondary shotgun has been pretty fun for me, and even seeing red here too because of our Adarza. I think if you want to push this secondary into red crit, the best way to do so is with an Adarza Kavat, getting red crit about twice a minute. Let's go ahead and look at some final footage and dream about Riven mods. As per our new format here at the 88th, let's go ahead and start taking a look at the weapon in our final gameplay segment with these elements of both shields and, of course, our Adarza Kavat coming together to amplify the weapon, because, as I said, no weapon really is meant to stand on its own, and that's really what it comes down to. You're not going into a mission to just use the Pyrana. You're going in a mission to combine the Pyrana with different frames, different weapons, a different kit. And so this is the kit I came up with for at least demonstrating the weapon mostly on its own, but amplified in critical chance and damage. And yeah, I really enjoy this sidearm, and I think for me, what is going to complement it most is a primary like the Ignis that does a lot of spread damage, a lot of AoE damage. I'm so tired. And yeah, that's a lot of what it comes down to. So let's actually just go ahead and watch the weapon in action. So obviously we talked about the detractors to the weapon: small ammo pool and a decently long reload time for such a small ammo pool. And then of course you have to really put a lot of forma to achieve the damage on this weapon, because it is this, it walks this fine line. And then at the end of that fine line, what you don't have is the opportunity to have two dual elements to allow you to really add more damage to targets. But this doesn't make it bad, it just means that when we finally see Riven mods for this, when we finally see the dream for this weapon, it just means that we want to be a bit more specific about what we're aiming for. So since we're talking about achieving the dream, let's talk about what that might look like. Obviously pure damage, pure multi-shot crit, crit damage, all of these will be good for this weapon. But I think what I would love to see personally is probably reload speed. I know there might be those who want ammo for it, but with such a small ammo pool, affecting that with a percentage just doesn't seem like a good path for me to take. So I would prefer that reload speed. When I build my Brock, I build it for reload speed, so it basically instant reloads and goes back to DPS, and I think that would help this weapon a lot more. And I also would love to see status. I haven't played with Riven mods too much on my PC account, and I think status doesn't really get that high for a lot of the weapons that I have seen and looked up Riven mods for. But of course this also depends on the new kind of Riven affinity, and I think the Pyrana would likely have a low affinity to it. So it'd be interesting to see how high we could get the status effect on it, because I feel like this... Is this higher than the other two, the Brock and the Detron? I want to say it is higher in status, and that's probably wrong, but even so, being that it's a slash weapon, if we could achieve that 100% status, being that it's a shotgun, even though it's a shotgun pistol, it's still, I did the testing, and it still uses shotgun mechanics, where if you want to really achieve status, it's kind of 100% status or bust. And so I would love to see this translate into kind of a secondary, almost Tigris in a way, where you can get a lot more damage on a target over time because you're buffing its status, buffing its slash status. So that would be very interesting, and I think really between those two things, that is the Riven dream. Possibly pushing even the regular Pyrana, even before a Pyrana Prime, into Red Crit would be very cool, because I would love to see a lot more secondaries in Red Crit. So this has been the Pyrana. Admittedly an expensive secondary, but this has definitely been one of the more satisfying secondaries I've put so much Forma into. I think for me it was worth it. Obviously to each, they have to make their own decision on that. Man, melted that Bombard even though it's only level 35. Again, that's what we play. We play a lot of mid-game content, and that is often a good thing. So I enjoy playing with Pyrana. I'm looking forward to busting it out a lot more. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope maybe this interests you in either making one or dusting it off and taking it out again. And I'll see you next week for another set of 88th Armory, and I hope you guys enjoy. If you enjoyed what we had to do here, do the thing.